Newsroom's reportage focuses on startups on the rise and other businesses in their early stages. The Independent Investors Director, David Bonifacio, and Managing Editor, Ron Castro, join us now on The Final Word in studio to tell us more. Thank you so much for joining us, Ron and David.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, Ron, nice to see you after so many years. First of all, what is the status of the Philippine startup industry?
You know, we're having our glory years. We thought 2021 was a watershed when we grew from, 339 million in terms of startup funding into crossing $1 billion. But that sustained itself in 2022. So according to the Philippine Venture Capital Report, we're now at 1.1 billion. Somewhat, we're as a ASEAN player, we're still an emerging market, but we seem to be resilient. We seem to be continuing to grow.
Resilient, we're getting there, but where are we on the totem pole, David, as against the likes of Singapore, Thailand, Indonesia?
That's a great question. I mean, admittedly, the Philippines is early stages, but interestingly, a lot of the regional funds are more active here. So you'll find 6, 7 new funds made their first investments in the last couple of years. So other than independent investor, I'm also the country partner for TNB Aura, which is a regional fund. So we made our first investments in the last 2 years. So Philippines is definitely a growth area. We're very excited about it. And I think that's why the timing for the independent investor event is key, because then people are understanding what is venture capital, how does it differ from private equity and other things.
That's right. So what's the difference between venture capital and private equity?
Well, venture capital, I think, carries a little bit more riskier portfolios, I would say. And as opposed to private equity, which are probably more data centric. They put a lot of premium on knowledge so that they can make the proper decisions.
I think stage matters a lot. So venture capital is really designed for early stage, designed for things that need hyper growth, and then maybe are too early to have the earnings or traditional comps that a private equity capital would.
But of course, before the early stage, Ron, David, there's also the pre-seed stage and the seed stage. Do you also cover that in the independent investor?
Yes, definitely. I mean, these are all early stages from bootstrapping, right? And some of them are bootstrapped all the way.
Or idea stages.
Right? So ideas that get incubated into coming up with what we call an MVP, a minimum viable product.
Not most valuable player.
Oh, well, could be.
That's Ron.
And all the way to when they're already accelerating the business, But not just that, we're also looking at businesses that are expanding into the country.
Okay.
So that's fair game.
Let's take a look at these specific businesses. Where do regional funds put their funding? In which particular industries? What kind of businesses, David?
So if you look at one of the biggest criteria is really TAM, or total addressable market. So when you're looking at the categories, you're looking at categories that give you that size. So
size and scale.
So one of them, of course, you'll see is fintech, definitely. A lot of unbanked people, that story is quite well known. The other one has been, let's say, e-commerce. And now you're even finding things where, as an extension of e-commerce, some of these direct-to-consumer concepts. And of course, in the news, right, the latest races are, let's say, around pickup coffee.
Yeah,
right?
food,
F&B.
non-tech, services, retail. They seem to be getting a lot of attention in the investment community as well.
Media, there was some with, during the pandemic.
Online media.
Online media,
Social media, I mean, there's so much right now.
Gaming.
The likes like Kumu.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
Which has really scaled up in size.
Yep. Caterina, for example, one of the startups, just had a major event last weekend.
But when you're saying funding, how much money do you infuse into these startup businesses?
Yeah, so
Is it just in the hundreds of thousands of pesos?
No.
In the millions of pesos?
Well, in the millions of dollars.
Yes.
So for example, for Series A funds like ours, we aim to write a $3 to $5 million check size per investment. Now, when you look at the case of, let's say, Pickup Coffee recently, that's about
$40 million.
$40 million at that valuation. So that's a really, like, if you think about startups in the Philippines getting that much money, these are all new.
So, Ron, you are the managing editor of this digital newsroom called The Independent Investor. So how do you pick and choose these early stage businesses that will be featured in your digital platform?
Yeah, we'd like to call it incident of change, right? So there needs to be something going on. So were they able to raise funds? Are they expanding? Did they hire new management? Are they building a different product line that's going to disrupt the market, right? So we don't write company brochures, but we write the incidents of change that could bridge these stories together, bridge the entrepreneurs and the investors together, so that they can discuss it, right? And that they can see what they like and don't like and try to get more information.
And basically, you start featuring these companies from the pre-seed stage all the way to expansion phase and maybe even the exit phase.
Yeah,
until they sell out.
We've had exit stories.
Can you give us some examples? Briefly.
There's Potato Corner, right? Potato Corner started with 4 founders, and eventually it ended up with one founder taking it all the way to international status, right? The pandemic kind of slowed things down for any food cart business, for that matter. At the end of the day, Shakey's was the company that said, we want to take it on. So in your Mojos now, you would have flavored Mojos.
Oh, that's a great exit strategy.
It is.
To be bought by a major conglomerate. But you have a major event called the Open Access event, which is called the War for Growth. Blitz Scaling. What is Blitz Scaling?
Yeah, so I can answer that. The Blitz Scaling, that was coined by Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn. Essentially, it's a business strategy where the company tries to quickly scale to achieve some sort of market dominance or moat, where the value is related to the size of it. So, for example, let's take LinkedIn, right? If you only had a few thousand members, it wouldn't be too much value. But because you have millions of members, then the value of it is exponential. So there are certain models that need to be a certain size for it to be of value, and
Can you give us an example here in the Philippines?
Well, no, the king of Blitz Scaling is Amazon, right? So Amazon was founded in 1994. They sold books online until they started selling everything online. But they didn't really turn a profit till 9 years later.
But here in the Philippines, can you give us a concrete example of a Blitz Scaling company?
I'm not sure if, let's say, it was completely the Blitz Scaling playbook, but one example of a company that has really strong moats now because of the speed and the size is Gcash. So if you think about the number of people who now have Gcash, transact with Gcash, and now what would it take for other people to have that same level of dominance? So it's created certain moats, it's created certain advantages.
So when is this open access event, the War on Growth?
War for Growth. That's on June 15. We're going to have it at the 11th floor of 6 Neo in BGC.
And this is for everybody? Anybody can attend? Startup businesses?
That's right. I mean, we'll have the whole ecosystem coming in. We've got a great lineup. Speaking, the NDC, the National Development Corporation, the GM, Anton Mauricio, will also be doing the keynote for that. As you know, the government's very active now with startups and co-investing with them as well.
Apart from the government, private sector?
Yes, the private sectors will be there. The conglomerates also will be there. Growth applies to anyone, right? Whether you're a startup, a small business, a big business. It all depends on what strategy you employ.
But of course, we also have to realize that it's not all a bed of roses for startup businesses. Everyone can fail.
Yeah.
Right? Most of them fail.
Most of them fail.
Most of them fail.
Definitely. I mean, entrepreneurs by nature take risks, right? And when it's a departure from the comforts of luxury and safety nets. Our logo is a wolf, right? And when you have a wolf, that wolf wants to roam free. As opposed to a dog that's chained.
Gets a bone,
That gets a bone. But because they roam free, they're free to roam and chase their ideas, and they hunt. And when they eat well. So that's entrepreneurship. It's a wolf, and that's our brand.
And all the best to the Independent Investor and your open access event on June 15th. Thank you so much for joining us on The Final Word, Ron Castro and David Bonifacio.
Thank you. Thank you, Rico.